We took a break, but last we left off, we got to the manuscript part of the book. The Onward Falls, which is where we're going to continue. Um, it is unknown. It is unknown. Just how many pages make up the manuscript, but they potentially number in the hundreds. It is nowhere near the hundreds. It's only 109. Based on my investigation, it is likely that Agent Nightingale had amassed more than what was present in the air vent. But the location of the extent pages remain unknown. My research in Bright Falls hit a dead end. Okay, my research in Bright Falls hit a dead end when it came to these pages. Although the provenance of the notes is unclear, their style is unmistakably that of Wake's. Just how or when these pages were written, or to what end, remains a mystery. Wake, Wake arrived in Bright Falls 2 weeks before Deerfest, and had supposedly never been to the town before. How would he be able to write page after page depicting events related to actual town residences? Some of these residents are now missing, while others did not care to comment and became quite aggressive when I persisted with my question. Whether the pages were predictive of future events or some complex incantation that caused the events to occur may never be solved to any degree of satisfaction. That's one of the pages. Oh, God. 4 days after she reached the age of 26, Maggie decided her life was over. If asked to explain why, she could not have answered. Pressed, she might admit to had something to do with Samuel. How he had left 3 months ago without a word, and how she had just seen him at a party, and how he had his arms around a beautiful girl she'd never seen before. It was more than that, of course. It was always more than that. It's why that's why she was walking the 7 miles to Lover's Peak. Teenagers had parties out there, and very occasionally somebody would fall or jump. She hiked the trails wearing her old headlamp, followed the bouncing ball of light. Following the bouncing ball of light, she was reading the lyrics to a song. When she reached the peak, she switched the headlamp off. If asked, she admits that she did not jump. She simply inched herself closer and closer to the edge until the inevitable happened. Eyes wide open, she fell rapidly, but death was quicker. In her last moments, she saw a cloud of ink rise from the tree and catch her like an insect in amber. I held her softly, the way Samuel once did, and by the time it brought her down to the forest floor to settle on her feet, it was as though she was reborn and ready to start a new life. Perhaps she would visit an old friend, and Ellen, and testing the soil residue on the page indicated it was indeed found near Lovell's Peak. This one was found half buried in the forest. This parish required forensic washing to be legible. Ellen shivered as the storm rolled in. A sweater and jacket should have been plenty to ward off the chill, but it was dark and suddenly so bitter that the stars looked jagged. A scientist should always be prepared, she chided herself. Ellen wasn't weird, no matter what the other seventh graders said. Her mind just worked differently, which was why she was sitting in the forest with her ears stopped up and a mini tape recorder beside her. Soon she would know the answer to the question. If the trees fall in the middle of the forest and there's no one there to hear it, Does it make a sound? Extra credit. The outer trees rattled against each other in the wind like finger bones. Soon as the storm toppled one over, the recorder would provide the proof if it actually made a sound when it falls. She shivered again, her breath frosty. She looked around, trying to get her bearings, but everything seemed tilted and out of place. Even the stars were blinking out like somebody pulled the plug on heaven. Accompanying notes indicated, well, natural tram near the tree known as the Old Green One. Abandoned RV. Perhaps she would visit her friend and nothing to cover herself but the shadows, though. Nothing to cover but herself but the shadows overwhelmed her. She reached for the light switch in desperation. She cringed and crossed her arms across her chest, hugging her own body close. Before the onslaught, squeezing her eyes shut, she shuddered. Felt the darkness fill her, chasing away every hope, attacking even her memory of her own identity. The alarm of the invasion caused her to cry out involuntarily, which only sped the inevitable. Her descent into despair hurtled like a pitch black boulder thrown down a dark mine shaft. The cries came out in muffled, choking sounds. In her ears, she could hear what sounded like a monsoon crashing its devastation inside the cabin. Outside, there was near silence. The elderly couple who walked heard nothing of the internal storm that raged only a few yards away. It's cold, the old woman said to her husband. Suddenly very cold. Her gray curls shook as she shivered. The old man smiled. You're always cold, he said. There did, there did seem to be an extra breeze through the forest. He slipped his jacket off and put it over her shoulders, thinking he was rescuing the nearest damsel of distress. Wow. So somebody was being consumed by the darkness, and then meanwhile, an elderly color couple out, I guess near and far at the same time. I guess didn't even think about anything going on. Worst vacation ever. 2 weeks off a year, and Blaine had to spend it driving around in an RV with his in-laws from Tokyo. People acted like they had never seen a redwood tree, and his mother-in-law found every jerk Watertown cute. Nothing cute about Bright Falls, just redneck dudes asking him what kind of mileage he got in a Winnebago. Didn't help that his wife, Asiko's septic colon was kicking up with all that food, making her totally useless. It all fell on Blaine. He wanted to burrow on to Longview or Portland, someplace with a sizzler and a multiplex. But his in-laws had seen the mountain turn out and wanted to stay and watch the sunset. Like the sun never set in Japan. Fine, Blaine stayed in the RV while the three of them stood against the railing taking pictures. Geez, it got dark fast up here in Nowheresville. Hardly see a thing. 1 minute it was twilight, and the next. Yeah. That's the end of that one. In an abandoned RV, it was burned. How many of these are there? Oh, there's two more. Paige found near an abandoned cabin in the woods north of Cauldron Lake. Bill rocked on the porch of his cabin as the last of the light faded, listening to his stomach growl. When his little brother disappeared 26 years ago, at least Bill got dinner. Oh, sure, folks had traded tales of screams in the night, Nothing but a smear of blood left behind. And poor Timmy this, and poor Timmy that. But Bill had insisted the brat must have gotten lost and fallen down a well. Timmy was always careless, always sticking his nose in places it didn't belong. Clara was the same way, Bill's wife. Clara never liked the cabin. Always worried about being so far from the other folks. Always seeing things in the trees, always asking them dumb questions. Now Clara has disappeared too, snatched away an hour ago, leaving a pan of loaf fixings on the table. The night deepened, but Bill maintained the same unhurried rocking. He liked the gathering darkness, the way the shadows piled up on each other. All these years, and he never missed his little brother. And he wouldn't miss Clara either. He would miss her meatloaf, though. Wow, that's an abandoned camp. So I guess his little brother was taken, and his wife as well. Or maybe it was him. Well, no, he just. We don't like Bill. Notes indicate this page was found in a ditch alongside Route 21B. If Donnie Ray thought Darlene was going to fall for that, I ran out of gas nonsense. Another thing coming. She had slammed the door of his 4x4 hard. It about cracked the window. She didn't care. Donnie Ray did, though, running after her, yelling, "Who did she think she was? Who did she think she was?" Knew who she was. She was the one saying, "Shove it," to Donnie Ray, which was why she laid hunkered down in the weeds, listening to the crickets while Donnie Ray thrashed around in the darkness, bellowing about what to do to her when she found her. Crickets got real quiet, but Donnie Ray didn't notice. Darkness boiled up from the trees, and he didn't notice that either. Not even when it rolled right towards him, heart pounding. Darlene eased towards the road and started walking quickly back to town. She promised herself she wouldn't run, wouldn't panic, wouldn't what? Can we copy and paste this? You guys get to see what's on my it's a notepad. When given to fear, but that didn't last long. She didn't look back though, not once. So that was something. Darlene first felt it coming after her like a vibration under her feet, almost like a tickle. It would have been half pleasant on a sunny day, laying around by the lake, eyes closed like somebody was teasing her toes with a blade of grass. She was long past that though. Not not long past that though. I'm amazed that they even let me have that. Yeah, that's it. Okay, Alan Wake's fiction. Alan Wake's fiction ranges from visceral pulp magazine horror tales of his earlier career to the engrossing crime thriller that later brought him international acclaim. While the subject matter changed, Wake's fiction itself remained charged by his unique psyche and the doubts and fears he contends with. Wake could not escape himself through fiction. If anything, his fiction reflected a deeper version of himself. Thus, we see repeated in Wake's universe stories of fractured father son relationships, accounts of lurking evil, and of the hero's dawning awareness of his predicament. These themes haunt Wake's fiction and gives his fans glimpse into the epic forces that shape his emotional and creative life. In Bright Falls, Alan Wake confronted his most terrifying nightmare, a place where his fiction, based on manuscript pages, found scattered across the area seemed to become literally manifest. Even the lighthouse that played such a prominent role in his first published story, Aaron Boy, is part of the ominous landscape of Bright Falls. The same dark power that inexplicably drew me to this place is the same dark power that called the wake. And while my journey near destroyed my personal life, the cost of coming to Bright Falls may have been even greater for Alan Wake and his wife. Dark Visions. New Terror Tales of Terror by featuring Aaron Boy by Alan Wake. Do demons walk among us? Postmortem photography Beyond the Veil of the Dead. Contribute Barker. Oh. Oh boy. Jeez. This is gonna be a doozy. I'm already like 55 pages into this. That's the crazy part. Because you have to understand that this is like 2 pages. Aaron Boy by Alan Wake. First, Alan Wake's first published story, Aaron Boy, a long out of print horror tale, was written when Wake was only 18. Previously available only in dog-eared copies of Dark Visions magazine. Clearly, Wake was concerned with the same battle between good and evil that he would explore in his more popular crime fiction. Okay. Okay. Hard to drive with a fist gripping your heart, squeezing tighter with every passing mile, every minute getting him closer to the father he had never met. Daniel managed it. He always did. You tough it out, put pedal to the metal, and never look back. Aunt Hannah, the woman who had raised him when his mother died, would have said to ignore the letter. Let sleeping dogs lie. Danny, but she was roiling. She was broiling in a senior community in Arizona. And besides, how do you ignore a last chance? You do it very easily. Then again, I guess I would be the type too to be like, if I got a letter from my biological father, which should be impossible because he's passed away. Mine passed before I was born. So, dear Daniel, I hope you are well. I am not sure how you will respond to this request, but I am very near death and wanted to see you once before the end. You are 18 now, and yes, I am aware of your birthday last week, grown man as it were. And I am hoping you can forgive me for my many sins of omission. I have things to tell you about your family history that might make the journey to plunder worthwhile. If you choose to cast this letter aside, know at least that I have often thought of you and your mother and never when I had a deep sense of longing and regret. So here he was, bouncing down the back roads along the North Carolina coast, completely off the grid, nothing on either side but dense pine forest, and nothing up ahead but the edge of the world. If it hadn't been for the hand drawn map that his father had included in the letter, would have never known where plunder was. God probably didn't know where plunder was. Really? It's that deep of a is this his entire short story? Oh. So reading this is supposed to give you like an actual like real look at a real good look at what you thought. Oh, Yeah, this is all. Boy Scout merit badge for Fred. Creators Kenny Albert Fred. They really wrote all of this. This is from one of his books. It's probably just a chapter, but jeez, there's a lot, man. Jane or Beautiful Jane, whichever. Okay, yeah, I might be looking over my shoulder. Just going to find out who the non-fiction. Okay. Oh, then we talk about the creators. The following chapter and essay were part of Aging Nightingale's dossier. It appears that while his recent visit to the Bright Falls was the first time he had actually set foot there. In fact, he had been investigating the small town for some time, but it was persistent and reoccurring dreams that led him to the town, as they did myself, or whether his research was part of a more formal investigation by the FBI. I have only hints and suppositions. The dossier itself is equally puzzling. One can only surmise Nightingale's rationale for including an account of the treatment options at the Bright Falls Clinic, specializing in the cares of artists in a litter of bizarre local events dating back more than 100 years. What I do know was that Nightingale's dossier was not a Carparius collection of unrelated data, but the work of a trained law officer. Though emotionally unstable, Nightingale was a meticulous researcher, a man desperate to discover the dark secret of this town, a secret he feared was about to menace a secret and really tied to Alan Wake. Okay. Creator's Dilemma, which is by Emil Hartman. Oh, years ago, I began my training as a garden variety therapist. God. Dreams that wake monsters. Eyes were changed for him. He stayed with us 2 years, eventually producing a 6-hour outburst, Nightfalls. This flawed work of masterpiece. No. Would this really work if it was a thing? Oh, here we are. Bright Falls, a history. The following article is taken from a larger work, Bright Falls, a history, edited by Conrad Breaker. Breaker? Like Sarah Breaker? We might have to put that like next to it. Right? Yeah, Conrad Breaker. It's the sheriff's grandfather. It is unknown if he lives in Bright Falls or New York City with his son. Like Breaker. However, it's more likely he lives in Bright Falls as he was the editor. The seller Breaker's fresh apples seen on the sign at Snookies. We'll be learning about Frank Breaker soon, which is Sarah's father. Copies of the books can be easily located in the town's library or bookstore, but this chapter was found among Nightingale's effects, cut from the book with a razor. While constructing the content of this chapter to the rest of the fairly benign book, see why it appealed to Nightingale. A History of Oddities by James Abbott. For residents of Bright Falls, A sleepy town of only a few hundred, strange events that may seem like an aberration in most communities of its size have become commonplace. Research into multiple Pacific Northwest news archives have revealed that the area has actually been something of a hotbed of tall tales and paranormal rumors since at least the 1850s. Some stories predate official statehood for Washington when Bright Falls was a mountain community of native tribes mingled with white American fur trappers and hunters who had ventured west into the Washington territory. Oh, how much is this? Dark Cloud. Oh, it's gonna tell you. Oh, wow, they tell you. Oh, it tells you all the rumors. Okay, we're gonna read this. This is important. One furry creature that was never successfully trapped. That's a Sasquatch. The Lumi tribal name for Bigfoot. Reports of sightings, alleged foot tracks, and an abundance of unexplained sounds abound in the forested area near Cauldron Lake. The Lumi tribal legends include stories of a large ape-like creature that go back several centuries, and printed accounts date back to the first day of journalism in the Northwest. Sorry. One such century account involved Mountain Mike Callahan, a native of Missouri who had been trapping in the Oregon and Western territories for decades, considered a stable, unflappable man who had seen everything in the woods. He presented himself to acquaintances as a true adopted son of the forest, clad in buckskin with his trademark beaver her hat. In 1857, however, Callahan had been camped on the shores of Cauldron Lake when locals reported a bizarre animal bellowing sound. Echoing across the lake, followed by a sustained human screaming. Bright Falls residents spoke of seeing Callahan dressed only in his red flannel union suit, running barefoot through the town, his eyes wide with fright. Callahan was found 2 miles outside of town the next day, eyes wide open, shivering, his formerly dark brown mane of hair now completely white. Callahan never spoke again, so it was impossible to know for certain what he saw and heard. He died 9 months later in the Olympia Asylum for the Afflicted. Bright Falls residents, however, formed the opinion that the incident must have involved an up-close encounter with the Sasquatch. Jeez. Modern day of sightings of Bigfoot-like creatures are numerous, particularly in the mountainous areas of Washington state. An internet database of reported sightings by state, for example, lists the number for California in the 20s and a similar result for the state of Oregon. Washington, however, lists more than 700. What? A great number of the oddity sightings, strange sounds that are not any known human or animal source have occurred in the vicinity of Cauldron Lake. Okay. Oh. So Sasquatch just casually hangs out at near Cauldron Lake. That'd be odd though, because we didn't run into throughout the entire game. You don't run into anybody like that, like a Sasquatch person. because we've been around the car throughout the game. You hang out around Cauldron Lake, so a lot, quite a bit. I mean, keep going around it. Cauldron Lake Lodge, it's right there on the water, looking over it and stuff. So, Dark Cloud, Sky Sasquatch is not the only legendary creature rumored to reside in the area. Everyone has heard of the Loch Ness monsters, but few people will of know of our own shadow beast of Cauldron Lake. It's never gained a catchier name than that. Because people have never agreed on just what it is. What exists in a local what exists in local legend is a string of similar rumors that may or may not be related. Oh my god, my eyes are stinging. One of these legends trace back to 1977 when a young couple engaged in amorous pursuits near the shore of the lake was surprised by what appeared to be an inky dark cloud that floated in the air above the water. This was accompanied by instant storm-like conditions, though the sky above them was clear and starry. The names of both people were withheld in the press coverage at the time, as they were underage and there was a possible investigation into misdemeanor activity going on. But there was anonymous quotations from both witnesses that described snake-like tendrils emerging from the cloud and an unearthly shrieking sound accompanying the storm sounds that emerged from the floating shape. It was enough to send the two half-clad teenagers running away from their clandestine sanctuary and towards their homes. Whether snake-like extensions are related to stories of the 1800s about flying... About what? Flying serpents in Utah, and other parts of the western United States territories is unknown, but it does connect with several other accounts of dark airborne events that have been cited in significant numbers since the mid-1970s. Another particular sighting serves to underscore the contrasting lack of agreement on the legend. In 1975, Ingrid Preston reported a dark, rhinoceros-shaped creature arising from the lake. Its neck extended 40 feet above a massive torso. She could not describe detailed features, such as eyes or teeth in the creature, but swears that it had a tangible fantasy form beyond the nebulous objects described by other witnesses. The consistent thread is that this, too, seemed as though it were made from darkness itself, a darkness so intense that the contrast can be seen even at night. Peterson's account was largely dismissed, however, because of her history of alcoholism. Oh, shame. The feathered serpent. Other accounts of a lake creature are demonstratively inaccurate. For a few years, around 1978 and 79, it was referred to as the Cochicora, or the feather serpent of ancient Aztec legend. Local native. Oh, oh. Local native tribes made a particular public protest of this ignorance. Chill. Chief Thomas Deer Chaser was quoted as saying, "Not only is that a Southwest and Mexican thing, but the Quetzalcoatl isn't even a monster. It's an Aztec deity. Yeah, that's true. It's a sky god. It's not supposed to be in some scary thing. We got plenty of scary stuff to talk about here up here in the Northwest without resorting to that. Some people are just plain ignorant." Oh, okay. So I guess the native tribes are angry because we keep pulling. Apparently, we're comparing things like the feather serpent. Apparently, we're comparing it to we're literally calling it something that the Corticore, which is like not even close to being ours. It's like that's Aztec deity. It's a god, not a creature. It's like first of all, everybody is way off base. It's literally what they're saying. It's like, guys, you guys are way off base. You're not even close at this point. You're literally freezing right now. When asked to elaborate on the scary stuff that is more local, Chief Deer Chaser referred to the Sasquatch, the flying snakes, and the spirit touch state young men went into as part of a life passage. But we don't really believe in any of that, except the last one. Oh, from the collection of one of Emmett Snyder's, an amateur birder who will only go on the record to say that these ravenous nocturnal birds were a local species. That's said rites of passage are scary enough. Ghost stories and monster stories are just for entertainment. He further noted that if you want stories about sea creatures, you should go talk to Quiller down by the coast of Tahola. They're full of that stuff, but if you want dark creatures from the lake, I've got nothing. Really not. A local artist rendering of the shadow men she saw. Oh. Yeah, there they are. Beyond the shores of the lake, other sightings of smaller, dark creatures go further to confuse the myth. Shadow dogs. Never saw any shadow dogs. Dark humanoid shapes. Blackbird like creatures. Even dark versions of plant life entering a mix of legends. The strangeness even extends to inanimate objects. Rustic cars found in treetops. Waterlogged boats in the middle of the woods, too far from the lake to be carried there by humans. There's so many possibilities that it is impossible to nail down one creature or even type of creature that occasionally terrorizes this small town. Ours conception of a man wrapped in shadows, reportedly seen in the vicinity of the Bright Stalls Dam in the days before Day of Fest. Whoa. Yeah, that looks like one of them. Officials and law enforcement have traditionally been silent on the issue, but we were able to get an off the record quote from one officer on condition of anonymity. "We think the stories are bunk," the officer said, "but ghost stories have their uses. You know? Line of work, anything that keeps the kids from getting into trouble at night is a good thing." That is true. But they already know, like the cops in the towns like Bright Falls, small towns, they have their secrets, especially if they're supernatural, and they're not just gonna say what they are. That's the thing. People have to understand. They're not just gonna say it. They're gonna keep quiet. It's the moment Because the thing is, the moment they reveal, yeah, all this is real, it invites a lot of trouble. It'll invite people that, like I said, paranormal experts. I use the word expert very loosely and like in quotations because we know there's no such thing really. Um, and like a lot, mainly the crazies that will start showing up all over town, and that could cause a lot of chaos. So most small towns, yes, they have their secrets and they have probably paranormal things happening in them, but they'll never tell you because they want to actually keep people safe. They want to keep outsiders safe and not have them flood the town with more chaos than what they have to deal with. Let's see. Paranormal activities and other strange events have not been limited to creature sightings. In 1901, before the invention of the airplane and before the widespread introduction of electricity to rainfalls, residents reported a series of incidents involving hovering lights just above the trees. The sighting occurred on 4 separate nights through the summer of that year, with each incident reported by multiple people. One resident, Tobias Crane, created an oil painting of the scene decades later from his childhood memories. The painting, called Floating Lights over Cauldron Lake, now resides in the private collection of Dr. Emil Hartman. It depicts children by the shores of the lake pointing skyward, while strange lights illuminate the water's surface. Dr. Emil Hartman's collection, while not on display, is reported to be one of the largest gatherings of art depicting bizarre, unnatural phenomenon. It is unknown whether these strange lights are related to the more recent ruins or illuminated messages found in the nooks and crannies around Bike Falls. None have ever been photographed, but multiple reports from disparate sources certainly point to a trend. Local law enforcement seem less enthusiastic about these reports. We've never caught anybody at it, said our same anonymous source. But you can bet if we do, we'll give these kids a little talking to. We got our eye out for any kind of mischief. A survey of local teens produced blanket denials of vandalism, along with several shaky reports of sightings. There were there were messages, said one young woman. I haven't seen them myself, but my boyfriend's cousin did, and so has one of my sister's friends. All different messages too. Strange things like walk in light and these odd symbols and arrows. Stuff like that. This Oh, okay. So the rule is you can't see the writing. Um if you assume that it has been said that you can't see the writing unless you have been touched by the darkness yet saved by the light. Only then can you see the writing whenever you channel a light, like a light source at us wherever the markings and stuff are. So that means that that this person's boyfriend's cousin and her sister's friends, one of them, that means that somehow they were touched by darkness and saved by the light, which is odd. Despite the lack of photographic evidence, a few artist renderings of the strange messages have been recreated with the assistance of the alleged witnesses. A common thread that gives the story some credibility is that all witnesses have described the symbol of a torch alongside bizarre messages. See, the scratching hag of Bright Falls. Ooh, excuse me. That's the coffee. Some stories seem designed specifically, specially, specifically designed specifically to scare children. The legend of Granny Claus, the scratching hag of Bright Falls, seemed to be a perverse twisting of the traditional image of a kindly old grandmother who will welcome youngsters in for a plate of warm cookies. Variations abroad abound, but the core narrative mirrors that of Baba Yaga, an old woman who emerges from the forest at night, sometimes walking, sometimes flying, or what appears to be an artist's conception of the glowing messages. I located the structure, but only the lower torch symbol was visible. It appeared to have been rendered with red or paint. Huh. So yeah. So we can officially say what's his name has not. I think what it is he hasn't been saved by light yet. So the author of all this would be a stone dish of some sort. What? The rumors is that she eats children. A detail of the story that resurfaces every time a child is reported lost. Our home, her home, which has never been seen, much less photographed by current town residents, is somewhere deep in the forest and is said to stand on giant chicken legs. Well, yeah. Baba Yaga is an old tale, though. That's a that's a normal, like, supernatural being, though. Like it's yeah. What we're looking for, the scratching hag is a different entity altogether. Then again, you know what? Then again, divers the bird, the cabin was sitting on an island that was in the shape of a bird's foot. So maybe that's why they in the end they do call her Baba Yaga. This allows the house itself to change locations at will, making it impossible to determine a single location in the forest for her residence. There are disagreements about her physical appearance, perhaps due to her penchant for darkness. But the various versions all speak of unnaturally wide open eyes, extended claw like nails from her withered old hands. If the weird eyes and claws weren't enough, she is said to carry an extra darkness around her, making nights even darker. Not many people believe this legend, whereas the other paranormal phenomenon all have their true believers. This story is primarily perpetuated by parents who want to keep their children safe from the true dangers of the forest. It is also shared among children themselves who love a good ghost story, and as a result, the details appear to have been changed and wildly elaborated over the years. Um, okay, so there's two more stories here. Other oddities have been attributed to paranormal causes in the area. In 1957, Vern and Norma Bergdale, longtime Bright Falls residents who were married for 43 years, died almost simultaneously on the opposite sides of town, both of apparent natural causes. What? Newspaper accounts at the time noted that their dual passing was evident that they truly shared a soul. Private letters from local archives, however, made reference to an unsavory bargain. Vern Bergdale had made, and that strange forces were involved with their passing. A rumor that was never confirmed, as only one eyewitness was present with Norma Bergdale at the time of her death, was that she seemed to exhale a small black cloud before she collapsed and died. The witness, Betsy Sergstrom, thought it very odd because Norma didn't smoke, and there was no odor that would explain the dark, somehow metallic puff. My friends have always told me that I imagined it, Sergstrom insisted, but I have no imagination. I saw what I saw. So, that's a weird one to explain. Because based on everything we know, so she had darkness in her. We know that. That's what the small black cloud exhaled. The way it sounds, it kind of reminds me of the Supernatural show with Dean and Sam Winchester. That whole ordeal. It sounds like it sounded like a demon leaving her body. But if we're going by the rules of this, that would mean that the darkness had used Norma, um, used Norma to do something, and then once once it was done, left Norma and she died. At the same time, I guess uh, Vern at the same time realized that it was over, that his wife was dead and died at the same time. Though it says simultaneously. So that means, I guess they're trying to say truly at the same time. And one soul. And they think that Vern deal. Made a deal in that show. Yeah, that one's out there. That one's really out there. The Curious Case of Mr. August. The most recent and well documented oddity to have occurred in Bright Falls was the case of Clark August the third, the music industry entrepreneur made even more famous by the documentary film The August Years. The August Year by legendary German filmmaker Pascal. Footage of August early in the film revealed an almost comical portrait of an eccentric man in a dirty business suit playing a game of survival in the forest outside of Bright Falls. Surely people thought this would be a short lived experiment, but as winter drew near, it became apparent that what had appeared to be comedy was in fact a deadly earnest matter. People in Bright Falls today still argue over which part was most extraordinary: the fact that August miraculously survived the winter in near perfect health, or the fact that he disappeared shortly afterwards. All sorts of theories have accompanied his disappearance, some of them coupled with theories of his in initial survival. Was there a bargain that helped him through the winter, only to have payment exacted in the spring? Alien abduction and dark spiritual forces have also been raised as possibilities. The unexplained howling sounds, the noontime eclipse fog, and the forest micro tornadoes that appeared early in that season have all served to fuel rumors of an unnatural ending to August's life. Sheriff Sarah Breaker was flummoxed by this forensic anomaly. This is not like any missing person's case I've ever seen, she said. If he froze, if he got killed by a wild animal, if he drowned, there would be physical evidence. There's nothing. Even Sans Kid, who has researched the details of this case more than anyone, is at a loss. It's such an unexpected twist. He was quoted as saying, "You think you're at the end of a strange story, and then it has this incredible denouncement that throws everybody up. That throws everybody. We don't even have answers to the main part of the story, which is what happened that winter. And now we may never know what followed. It's difficult to get an explanation from someone who has vanished off the face of the earth." So, wait. The music. Ah. Okay, so he was a music industry entrepreneur. So it makes me wonder. Maybe he needed him. Uh, yeah, that does sound crazy. Somehow he survived the winter with like tons of chaos happening around him, and it was just like exhibits, huh? Oh, hmm. What else is there? Oh, okay. Let's let's go up back here. Exhibits. The clippings in this section represents an array of artifacts spanning decades of ranging from obvious choices, those directly about Wake, to more obscure ones. It's clear why Nightingale would want an article about Wake's criminal past, but why, for example, would he be interested in a woman who drowned 30 years ago with no apparent connection to Wake? And why note a natural disaster report roughly a week after her death? Did he suspect a link between the two? It's possible that there was a connection to some of the events when he hinted it in Nightingale's notes. Or possibly, he felt a need to put together a comprehensive portrait of the town he was studying, as though Bright Falls was as important a person of interest as like the true prizes, however, are the photographs of the Diver's Isle. The interest for Nightingale is obvious. The origins of the photographs, however, is a complete mystery. Much of Nightingale's motivation may remain an enigma, but publishing these as part of a comprehensive collection may light the pathway of one whose torch burns brighter than mine. Buck to Charlie! Ask Buck to Charlie. Okay, what do we got? All right, July 20th, 1970. Page A1. Volcanic quake sinks island, damages power plant by Cynthia River. Special to the Bright Falls record. On the morning of July 18th, a severe volcanic related earthquake caused significant damage to the power plant run by Bright Falls Light and Power, as well as many homes in the area. Seismic monitoring equipment at the U.S. Army Research Base nearly measured the quake at 7.3 on the Richter scale. Jeez. The epicenter is believed to be directly beneath Cauldron Lake. The most spectacular consequence of the quake is that Ivor's Isle, which once sat in the middle of the lake, has now been completely submerged. One of the deepest Caldera lakes in the Cascade Mountains, Cauldron Lake is no stranger to seismic activity. This quake, however, is believed to be the most severe in the area in the 12th century. In the 20th century, which, well, let's read more of this. While some area homes were damaged, very few were considered catastrophic, and there was no injuries. Sten Ferrix, a structural engineer and resident of Bright Falls, explained that most of the houses are made from logs and they're otherwise wood framed. That gives a certain flexibility that you don't just get in more rigid structures. Brick houses might keep the big bad wolf out, but they're not so good in an earthquake. Those are just those explosive. Those things just crumbled like a big house of cards. Okay, a fragile house of cards. How about that? We'll add our own words in. The town of Broward was without power for approximately 24 hours. Several of the turbines at the power plant remained damaged, but 3 of them are now operational. We got enough hydropower for the immediate area, said C.J. Chapman, a spokesman for Bright Falls and Power. We're just not exporting any outside our area, and that's a big source of our income. We'll all be glad when the structure checks out, and we'll get all the turbines up and running. To be perfectly frank, we're bleeding money here. The scene at Cauldron Lake has drawn a significant crowd of local bystanders. It's so strange, Divers Isle being just gone like that, said Carl Trop, a longtime area resident. I used to swim there as a kid. We all did. We sunbathed on the rocks and then dived off the edges. It was so deep, even right next to the island. So it was safe to go in head first. And there was a cabin in the middle, though I don't think it belonged to anyone. I never remember going in it. Funny, because you'd think we would. You wait. How can wait? You hung out on the island and dove off and swam around and at the lake, and yet no one went into the cabin? They saw it there, but nobody thought. Or is it? Then again, I never remember. Unless they have gone in, but something prevented them from remembering ever going in. Carl Stuckey, a local high school student, described his shock at seeing the island gone. It's weird to see all these people around the lake talking and pointing at the empty water. I guess if you weren't from around here, you'd wonder what we were all pointing at. Divers Isle lives on in our memories, and somewhere under the water, of course, no photographs of the island could be located for this story. Some citizens have expressed concern because of the volcanic aspect of the quake, but local officials have been quick to reassure the populace. There won't be any rivers of lava heading your way, say Sheriff Stephen Demon. We checked with the Army Seismic Station and the science guys at the University of Washington, and they assured us that the eruption wasn't that kind. Sometimes volcanic structures just collapse on themselves. The red hot stuff is pretty dramatic, but often most of the action is underground. The town remains on alert for aftershocks, however, which are common after a quake of this magnitude. But in general, life goes on in Louisville. We have quakes here all the time, said Stuckey. This one was just different because of the island, and it was a little bigger. It's not like anyone died, commented Trump. I had some broken dishes, and some of the food spoiled when the fridge warmed up. That's about it. I've just noticed something. In the story, the earthquake caused the island to sink, and Barbara Jagger and Thomas Zane was in it. Was in the cat. Well, was they died? They were meant to die, but the darkness took them both. Now the funny thing is, nobody says anything about Thomas Zane or neither Thomas Zane or Barbara Jagger, because Thomas Zane wrote himself out of existence, him and Barbara out of everything. no one is meant to remember them. Those that do, are they just consider it another crazy story that's um like Bigfoot or Sasquatch and stuff. Because when Wake brings up Thomas Zane, when brings up Thomas Zane, I think it's Sarah Breaker that says, "Are you crazy?" Because it's just a fairy tale that Thomas Zane is meant to be a fairy tale. So, but this probably would answer it. 7 Saturday, July 11th, 1970. This was 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Is that 9 days before this happened? So this is 9 days. Barbara Jagger, longtime resident of Bright Falls, died on July 10th. An apparent drowning in Cauldron Lake. She was 25 years old. She had no immediate family in the area, but is survived by her companion, Thomas Zane. Jagger was a renowned beauty and the 3-time winner of the Miss Deerfest pageant. She was such a pretty girl, said Jay Miller, a friend and classmate since elementary school, but she never used it to her advantage. She was humble and kind to everyone. Part of the mystery of her death is that she was a very capable swimmer. There was no evidence of foul play, however, and no investigation of the death is planned by the local law enforcement. Friends in Bright Falls remember Jagger as a warm maternal presence. Though she was a relatively young woman and never had children of her own, her home baked muffins at community events were famous. She didn't have big sales. She had big giveaways, one friend noted. Her generosity was amazing. She was just warmed everyone around her. Wherever Barbara was, you felt at home. So, July 10th, she died. She drowned, which is technically a lie. This, well, they didn't know what was going on. Barbara Jagger was yanked into the call. She was yanked into the lake on July 10th. On July 11th, they announced her death of drowning. July 20th. During those 9 days, Thomas Zane lost his mind. Okay? He did everything. He tried to use the power of the lake to bring her back, but the dark presence used him to its own ends by taking control of Barbara's body. When Thomas truly realized in the end what was happening, he caused the earth. He, in the end, wrote Barbara himself and the cabin itself from existence. Thus, why there was the quake, the earthquake. He used the power of the lake to get rid of the island by causing an earthquake. That's why no one brings up divers. That's why no one can remember what was in there, what was in the well, that's why it's like everybody claims that's why it's kind of like everybody just talks about the island was just always there, but nobody was living on it. When the reality was Thomas Zane lived there, but he had to rewrite reality with the lake to hide the fact that it ever existed or he existed as well. it's kind of ingenious, but at the same time, it really messes with things. It messes everything up. It's messy. All of this is a messy situation. Crime author has own police intrigue by Chris. Well, I do. Alan Wake, the author of the newly minted crime thriller *The Sudden Stop*, provided some thrills of his own Friday night. A warrant has been issued for his arrest after an alleged assault on Gazette photographer Peter Valentin, which includes the charge of leaving the scene of a crime. According to Valentin, Wake drove the camera into my with a drove the camera into my freaking eye with a closed fist while then attempted to take a picture after a gala cocktail party to celebrate the publication of the book. I was taking a picture, no harm, said Velison. Really? That's what photographers do. He should know. His own wife is a photographer. Yeah, but his own wife probably asks for whatchamacallits, permission. Photographer Alice Wake was apparently not at the scene of the incident. She was reached by telephone later but refused to comment. Her exhibit, Inflammatory, opens at the Bailiff Gallery in Chelsea on March 21st. Wake was no longer at the scene when the police arrived. New York Police Department issued a warrant on charges of assault and battery. He got out of there fast right after it happened, but he yelled at me something like, "Party's over, moron," and he slams the thing right into my eye. He didn't have to yell. Posed for reporters while being questioned by the police, pointing to an unquestionably ugly and swollen bruise surrounding his eye socket. Wake's representative, Barry Wheeler, issued a statement this morning on Wake's behalf and answered some questions posed to him. The statement read, Alan Wake regrets the misunderstanding that occurred at the Sudden Stop Gala night. He would like to reiterate his gratitude to and appreciation for all his readers and trust that they will enjoy reading The Sudden Stop as much as he enjoyed writing it. Such misunderstandings are common when the private activity of writing meets the public activity of book promotion. When asked if Wake would turn himself in, Wheeler responded with some evasiveness. Al's a straight-up guy. He'll do the right thing. When pressed about what the right thing was, Wheeler replied, "It's unclear at this point who actually did the assaulting. A camera with an exploding flash bulb right in your face can be pretty shocking. I've almost had a heart attack because of some of your paparazzi pals before. I'm not saying Al even touched the guy, but you gotta understand, you might have been just a startled instinct." When asked if it was Wheeler himself who whisked Wake away after the incident, he had no comment. It was him, all right. Valentin claimed, "The roly-poly guy. I was only half blind. It was definitely him." This is not Wake's first brush with the law, according to public records, and battery in particular seems to be a trend. Minneapolis police arrested an Alan Wake with a similar description for public drunkenness and battery in '98. Charges of disorderly conduct and battery were filed, though the battery charge was dropped. In West Hollywood a year later, neither incident resulted in jail time. The New York Tattler, January 14th, 06. This looks like a note. Oh, what's this? Bright Falls Sheriff Department. Domestic disturbance. 34. Andrew Days, Sarah Days. Mulligan. Origin of 911 distress call. Originated a neighbor of Andrew and Sarah Davis. Reported shouting and smashing sounds, including breaking glass. Officers responded to the distress call logged at 11:33 a.m. For their way into the residence of 34 Redwood Place. After repeated attempts to speak to the occupants were met with silence. The house turned out to be unoccupied, but with major physical damage to the interior. Deputy Morgan viewed the caller. There had been no history of domestic violence at Davis residence. Young couple. They hadn't informed any neighbors of travel plans. After midnight, it's an unusual time to run errands, so the Davises are now considered missing persons with a likelihood of foul play. The physical evidence is puzzling. There were significant damage inside the house, but it seemed to emanate from certain points in the room. The furniture in the main room was smashed against perimeter, as though there was a centrifugal force in center, spitting everything outward. The lab is investigating a black soot-like substance found in small traces at the scene. Oh, the liquid darkness that just leaves in its place. No evidence of incendiary devices or other suggestion of an attempted arson. The power outage out of the house is another anomaly. No other houses in the neighborhood were affected. Missing persons profile, married couple, both white, early 30s, both medium build. Wife wears a lot of black, according to witness. Not sure of significance of remark. Twin worked in insurance. The wife had an internet-based home business, according to neighbors. No known enemies. No dangerous habits. Both read a lot of mystery fiction, stayed at home, led quiet lives. When was that? Oh, the date is covered up. Wait. Wait. Hold on. We can get this. You can't cover it up. 8. That's all we got, really. 8, 7. Wait, didn't it? 11:33. Yeah. 8 something. 8. So it's August. So names of what remains a cold case. Okay. Dr. Stewart, this is a response to your Freedom of Information Act. Noted, we cannot furnish records related to Special Agent Nightingale as they remain classified due to an ongoing investigation of an unrelated matter. I can inform you, however, that Agent Nightingale is no longer employed by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Over 13 months ago, Nightingale's partner was killed in the line of duty. The trauma related to this event triggered a severe mental breakdown and the subsequent substance abuse problem you referred to in your correspondence. Our records indicate that he ventured to Bright Falls following his discharge from the Bureau, but we have no knowledge of and bear no responsibility for his activities there. Furthermore, we have no files relating to shadow men, lake creatures, ravenous crows, or any other bizarre supernatural phenomena described. Bob Nightingale was a solid and dependable agent who was not able to overcome his tragic circumstances. His current whereabouts remain unknown. So in the end, he was released from the FBI. They discharged him, which meant the entire time he was in Bright Falls, he was not a federal agent anymore. Okay? That's why he kept saying an ongoing investigation over and over, because there was no investigation. He was out. He was doing this he was doing this of his own volition, and not for an FBI case. But there is I cannot furnish records. But apparently there's another ongoing investigation about Nightingale that is an unrelated matter to what was being asked by Stewart. So there is still something going on with Nightingale. But by this time, it technically is too late because while my editor did not confirm that it was not, did confirm that Nightingale was not on official business, one can only wonder what the ongoing investigation of an unrelated matter refers to. Maybe we'll find out. A rare photograph of what is going on there. Diver's Isle, which is no longer visible in Cauldron Lake. The source of this photograph is unknown, but it is rare enough that the local newspaper could not locate one, even as it's documented the island's disappearance. Earthquake of 1970. Of even more interest than the photograph itself is the curious dark image that dominates the upper left corner. It could easily be a flock of birds, but the nebulous edges of the shape would betray a flock of the most unnatural kind. While not discounting the possibility of an imperfection on the photo, the possibility that this could tie many images of dark creatures in both Wick's fiction and Bright Falls legends cannot be ignored. So that's probably the darkness. Like the dark presence, just in its form right now, just in its basic, like, I guess you could say low level form. And there's the another angle of Diver's Isle with bridge access. This was the only way to get motor vehicles onto the island, as there was never been ferry access of any kind on Cauldron. The bridge, like the island, is now completely gone. A slightly obvious shape than the previous photograph can be found in the water. Wait, what? While smaller than the dark. Wait. A slight less obvious shape than the previous photo can be found in the water in the lower right portion. There. I guess that. While smaller than the dark flock seen in the preview, this manta ray like shape of an unknown creature provides a greater likelihood that the image is not a photographic accident. Note that there is no raised object in the immediate area that could cast a shadow in such a shape. It remains unclear where Agent Nightingale found 8 or these photos. Yeah, now that you mention it. How did he get them? Oh, jeez, it's still. Afterwards, we're now leaving Bright Falls. Despite its obvious natural beauty, I left the town of Bright Falls with a feeling of so much unfinished business. We all have. The preceding investigation was concluded at greater personal cost. The night I discovered Bright Falls, I left my wife Anna and our newborn son Milo on a quest for a man who had appeared to me in a series of dreams. Anna never understood the importance of my visions, never appreciated that they had a significance that extended beyond our petty lives into the world beyond. Sometimes it felt as though she couldn't see anything beyond the laundry, the bills, the local news. I will admit that she considered my investigation to be at best the product of obsession and at worst a convenience by which I could avoid the burdens of fatherhood. In the interest of full I will admit that since I had lost my job, I had not been able to provide for my family in any meaningful sense. Anna and I were once in love, but we married young. I was 20, she was 19, and since our wedding day, I felt more and more estranged from her. I had become depressed. I wasn't much use around the house. Milo cried. He cried a lot. I would pick him up and try to play father, but he would scream and bawl till I could hardly stand it. There's truth to what she said, but there's truth to what I found. When I left for Bright Falls that night, I kissed my wife and boy for what might be the last time, convinced that if I found what had appeared to me in my visions, that I would perish the way I had each night. for months. Anna told me that if I returned, she and Milo would be gone, and that I wouldn't be able to find them. That it was over between us. She begged me to stay, and as I walked out the door, she wished me dead. The visions were real, but perhaps I was a poor vessel for them. I didn't choose to be pulled into these events. Something happened in Bright Falls in the weeks before the Deer Fest of last year. Just look at the Elderwood Visitor Center, the strange number of appearances, the walking wounded who spoke in repeated sentences and could no longer venture into light, the photo sensitivity so acute as to render a simple noontime stroll excruciating. This was not a cover up orchestrated by mighty governmental agents or their outsourced minions, but by silent and unanimous consensus. No one will talk about it, and everyone concerned has chosen to go with their lives as though they could bury their memories with their departed loved ones. At the time of printing, I'm still unaware of whether Alan Wake is dead, missing, or in hiding. There was one night when I was walking back to the Majestic on the Elwood Trail, and I thought I saw a man that looked like Wake, rounding a bend in the trail. I called out and started jogging, then running after him. And while he seemed to walk at a steady pace, an even pace, I never were able to catch up. There was even a brief moment in which he looked back and I saw that it was him. He smiled at me as though he was letting me in on a big secret just before rounding the bend. When I caught up, he had vanished. Those closest to him have refused all requests of interviews. I've only just recently pursued his agent, Barry Wheeler, persuaded his agent, Barry Wheeler, to drop his lawsuit. I stayed on in Bright Falls for weeks, helped rebuild the devastation of the visitor center caused some by what some call bad weather. Yeah, the visitor center was hit. It was hit by the darkness, sadly, and yeah, that's where Rusty died. Caused by bad weather. I was referred to as the worst kind of juju. Likewise, my attempts to locate Agent Nightingale has been fruitless. My dreams have stopped, and I consider my part in this matter complete. Before leaving Bright Falls, I threw my dream journal into the lake and hopefully returned my visions to their source. I want no part of that anymore. But perhaps all measures, my search must be considered a failure. I've done my job, and I consider this book my torch. I pass it on to one of you loyal readers to continue the investigation and take it where it could not. When I finally left Bright Falls, I returned to Madison. I looked for Anna and Milo. The apartment was empty, and Anna's family refused to answer my calls. They were gone, and I was abandoned, alone. I searched for almost a year before finally making contact. I now work as an assistant in the basement of a university library, shoveling shelving books mostly, but occasionally fixing network problems and waking sleeping students at closing time. On those brief occasions, when one of these students catches my eye, they look away too quickly and they are over polite. I get the sense that they're afraid to catch what I have. Perhaps they look down at me with my anxious manner and ill fitting clothes, convinced that I am one of life's forgotten and poor beyond pity. I let them look down, smug with the pride of my secret. See, they don't understand what I have. They don't know that when I finish work, my back's sore and my feet as heavy as cinder blocks, that I catch a bus to the other side of town where I climb 6 floors to a small but well kept apartment. They have no idea that when I open the door, I see my beautiful wife and boy look up at me and smile. I am awash in the light and warmth of 1,000 suns. They don't understand that I have treasures beyond their imagining. that I am untouchable, alive, and that I walk in the light. Clay Stewart. So he got back with his wife, I guess, and his kid, or is this just the ramblings of somebody who has truly lost everything and is just making a happy ending for himself when the reality is, I guess we could take his word for it. We could just say, yeah, he's back. But yeah, I think what this is meant to be is pretty much how do I explain it? Uh I think it's, if we were to look at it from a lore point of view, this book was I think Clay Stewart was given the vision so he can go to Bright Falls and piece together what happened there. Like a true investigation of what happened so that it can be kept as a record. This is essentially a record account of what happened during the incident with Alan and the Dark Presence, the lake, and Nightingale, and most of all, a moment where, and what happened afterwards, the aftermath, finding out what happened to people after, or what happened to the town, and most of all, you get to see into the past. Somehow, Nightingale somehow got his hands on um photos that technically should not exist because um Thomas Zane should have written them out of existence, everything. But somehow Nightingale got his hands on both the revised the past version, like the before revised reality version of what happened to Barbara, and the lake incident that happened, which is him rewriting everything and drowning and sending the lake down, the cabin and the island down into the Cauldron Lake depths, to the dark place. But yeah, that was a lot of information. I'm wondering if we're gonna see Clay Stewart in Alan Wake 2, though. It would be interesting. So yeah. So yeah, that's Alan Wake Files. Wow, that was a lot. But I think we're gonna stop here. I have an Etsy. I bet you people are probably wondering what these are. That's Digimon RPG. This is another game. Gal Macros is that's Final Fantasy 14. Lightning modded Stardew. That's a list of mods for Stardew Valley. And this is Etsy. This is apparently a link to a jacket that I wanted to get from. That's like based off a jacket in Final Fantasy 14. There's an but yeah, that's the Alan Wake Files. We're not done yet. We're just getting started though. We still got, well, we're not gonna watch the music video. No way. Um, we still got images. Still got, which doesn't really do much for us. Music. That's the soundtrack. Wait, I thought we had the soundtrack already. So what is this one? Oh, that's the American Nightmare one. Oh, here we go. This is the Alan Wake scores. The library signal. These are meant to be the whatchamacallits. Pretty much the transcripts for the entirety of the game. What is visual activity? Oh, that's this is yeah. If you wanted the narration, the manuscript pages. Alan Wake the writer. Oh, this is American Nightmare stuff. Mr. Scratch videos. Oh, that's the transcripts for the videos. These are the two that we need to see. I keep forgetting you have to. So what is this? Night Springs by Alan Wake. Experts from Departure by. So this is when he was. This is about Frank Breaker. That's what this, which is important. And this one, oh, I really don't like. And this one is meant to be about. This is the talks about what happened to Emil Hartman. What happened after the like what after Cauldron, like after the Darkness attacked, which is what we'll do. We'll put them together in one video and one story. What time is it? These aren't long, are they? They shouldn't be that long. But I think that would be it, right? It's kind of weird that they don't give you the Alan Wake, the prequel, which is known as Bright Falls. They don't give you that. But yeah, that's it. I'm gonna take one more. I'm gonna take another break, and then we'll read those two. I just closed them. That's fine. I'll get them set up. But I'm gonna take another break, and then we'll read those two pretty much comics, and then that should be it. That should be all the information about Alan Wake. And then tomorrow we'll do Alan Wake American Nightmare. So give me a few moments.